Robots Radio presents
the Cyberpunk Lorecast.
Welcome to the Cyberpunk Lorecast, where style is just as important as substance. Welcome to the podcast where we explore the lore, news, and gameplay of the Cyberpunk games and other dystopian worlds. I'm your host, Robots.
Still haven't updated it. Welcome to the show, Chumbas. This is the Cyberpunk Lorecast. I'm your host, Tom, or Robots, and we're back today with a brand new episode for the beginning of February. It's February already. Crazy stuff, Captain Logan, my co-host. How are you?
I'm good. Just finished WandaVision, so I'm still trying to process all that.
Oh, yeah.
That's one Android. We're here. We're going to be talking. Yeah, I know we could do a whole show probably on WandaVision.
Is there a WandaVision podcast? Maybe we should start a WandaVision podcast.
Ooh.
Or like a Marvel TV series
that,
podcast. There's got to be an MCU podcast somewhere, right?
I am a huge idiot though, so I don't know nearly as much as the actual fans of like comics and stuff who are just like they're like grabbing every little tasty morsel of Easter egg that is that show. Yeah. And I'm just like, cool, I actually recognize that character because I saw an X-Men movie or like Scarlet Witch like back in the day. Right. I remember the cartoon. Right. I watched the X-Men cartoon in the early 90s. I collected comics back in the day. So I know some stuff, but not nearly like some of my friends do. Yeah, for sure. But anyway, have you read the Cyberpunk comics?
Oh no, I haven't caught up on those yet either. You're the one plugged into that stuff. I need to buy the rest of the Trauma Team stuff. There's just too many things going on. But welcome back. I'm glad that we have so many things to enjoy. That is kind of an embarrassment of riches, I guess you could say. So this so Thanatoasted in chat says, but is there an MCU Lorecast with specifically that name? Probably not. But I don't know that we're the people to host it because like Logan was saying, we don't have the deep knowledge of the comics like some people do. But I have some friends who might. Maybe I'll have to reach out to some of them. I don't know. I can't do another show. I've got too many things going on already. But welcome back, everybody. So today we're digging into everybody's favorite buddy, Jackie Wells. We're going to be talking a little bit more about Jackie, some of his background, kind of fleshing out some stuff in case you missed it while playing through Cyberpunk. And just in case you're worried about spoilers, Jackie's stuff, let's just say it this way. We will not address anything past the intro screen. No, I guess we will, because there's ending stuff we can talk about. We'll put that at the end. But almost all of this stuff happens in the first 6 to 8 hours of the game. So there you go. If you're worried about spoilers, but Jackie is a beloved character. Would you say that that's accurate, Logan?
I don't know anyone that doesn't like Jackie. I mean, he is kind of your compadre. There's like the buddy cop movies, and except it's on the other side where I guess you're kind of the thieves. You're the Thelma and Louise of Cyberpunk, and I mean, you choose who you want to be. But yeah, Jackie is a great character. He's always positive. You only find out that he's had the same doubts about life. Until later on after the heist, but he's always the one that feels like regardless of what goes on, you two can make your mark on Night City. And he's always the one that's just like, cool, yeah, whatever you say, I trust you. I will help make sure that whatever you want to do, that's what happens. And that sense of confidence in a game is so rare for me. Like, how often do you get into a game and the first character that you're with is just like, you're awesome, we're going to take on the whole world, and I'm going to support you 100% of the way to make you feel good about anything that happens. And he's right there with you the whole time. And I think especially in a time right now where you don't get to go hang out with friends as much, you get to see them, like we do on calls and stuff like that, video chat. It's so refreshing to be in a game where you're taking on a role and you're immersed in it, and your first character not only is either Well, I guess it depends on what life path you take, but in for example, like a street kid, you're running up against the competition, and the competition recognizes game, and then they're like, bro, we should just hang out because you're right there with me as far as cool level. So let me meet. You want to meet my mom? Let's go meet my mom.
You want to meet my mom? Yeah, he's endlessly optimistic, and for somebody with such a tragic upbringing, that is an interesting trait. And I think you're right, because it does start the game off with a very optimistic bent, and then of course things fall apart, right? like it gets you on that path of like, all right, we can take on anything, and then the game has a different story to tell. So why don't we dig into it, because there's a lot to cover here. A little bit of his background, the different ways that you come to meet him, and then what kind of happens after he passes away, which isn't a huge spoiler. I don't think that still happens in the beginning of the game. So let's get into it. So Jackie Wells, he was born in 2047, which means by 77, he's 30 years old. So he's no longer a kid, but he's not like an established adult. He's someone who knows his way around. When he was a kid, his father would get drunk and beat him and his mother mercilessly with his belt. But when Jackie became strong enough, he returned the favor and hospitalized him. His father left and was never seen again. But Jackie kept his father's belt and planned to use it if ever he returned. Now, pause there. I guess I probably should have warned at the beginning of this that there's some abuse stuff in here if that's a trigger for you. But I apologize. But with this character, I think that says a lot about who this character is and the requirements that Jackie has as somebody to stand up for themselves and to do the hard or the difficult or the violent thing when necessary to protect himself or a loved one. And that's kind of his mantra, right? Like, he loves his mom. I have a feeling when you grow up in a situation like that, oftentimes the father is also abusive to the mother, not just the children. Like, it's generally a drunken, terrible kind of person. And Jackie probably saw himself as becoming the protector of his family in order to stand up against his dad. So it goes on and says, and this all comes from the fandom site, the Cyberpunk fandom site, wiki. He grew up in the same streets as Misty, and the two saw each other a lot, though they never got together back when they were kids. Jackie joined the Valentinos for a time until a near-fatal incident convinced him to leave the gang for the sake of his mother when he was 19. Again, making decisions for the sake of his family. But he stayed on good terms with the Valentinos and Padre, who we know is their fixer. In 2076, Jackie began dating Misty. Jackie's mother disapproved of Misty and preferred his ex-girlfriend, Camilla. I don't know how you pronounce that. But Jackie continued to see Misty and even attempted to understand her spiritualism by making a mandala. So if you know Misty at all, you know that she's into, tarot card readings and all sorts of spiritualist concepts and things.
Crystals.
Yeah.
Curse you, Mercury. Yeah, I have a friend who's into crystals and astrology and tarot and stuff like that. So I'm constantly hearing about these kind of things and thinking like, oh yeah, it's like Misty. She's totally about being guided by the planetary rotations of things. And I'm like, right. I don't focus enough on that. But yeah,
I'm a pretty hard skeptic. So that stuff to me at this point in my life is kind of comedic. I'm like, oh, that's cute, but okay. Let's talk about real things maybe. But some people really believe in that stuff, and that's real to them. So who am I to judge? But it's interesting here because he does kind of wrap his life around hers in order to become, again, to take somebody who he has feelings for and kind of put them first. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Seems to be kind of the pattern here.
It's interesting about Jackie is I think the thing that really is interesting about him and Misty is like Jackie's optimistic, but he feels very uncertain about his future. And I think Misty being so tied to, giving palm readings and tarot card readings and having this desire to predict how things are going to go, was always kind of like having an inside man on betting for horses and stuff, you know, like if you have someone who knows like, oh, well, this horse is in good shape and the jockey's light, so that they got a good chance, you know, they got a good chance of winning the Derby this time. It's like Misty is kind of the person who's, you know, looking at her cards as a way to try and help Jackie know if he's going to do well on a job. And the optimist that he is wants to believe anything that she says is going to work out, because, you know, why else would the cards be, you know, why would she dedicate herself so much if she didn't believe it? And he wants to believe her that he believes it enough as well. And I think that's kind of like when you have someone who's enabling a bad habit. But in this case, it's him picking up gigs to, you know, do it, and him being optimistic about it, but her being like, all right, well, let's take a look and see how this is going to play out. And I don't think he ever got that. So I think when he sees you, I'm actually kind of curious if you think that there was a story to be told between like what Misty said, like, hey, you're going to come across someone who's going to change your life for the better for a time. And then he sees you and he's like, you
maybe. Yeah.
And then just kind of latches on.
Yeah. Because
at least in a couple like paths.
Right. Yeah. I mean, part of this is living the life through the perspective of the character and pretending the character is real. Right. And then the other part of this is looking at this as a story writer. Right. So, yeah, I think it works for both reasons. You could be that character and go, okay, here's something that Misty said, I want to believe that this is real. And now here's something to back that up, which happens a lot with these kinds of things, is that you're told something and then you make it come true because you believe it's going to be true. So therefore you act on it and make it true. So that could very well be a thing, but also from a literary standpoint, it's kind of a foreshadowing. It's a tragic foreshadowing, right? Like, this is going to change your life, but not the way you expected. And that's a very common trope in writing, is to post some sort of, you know, prediction on the future that is vague enough that comes out in a way that the characters didn't expect it to. And then of course that becomes a twist for the reader as well.
Yeah. Yeah. You see it a lot in movies and stuff as well too. I'd love to see that in the game though. I feel like that's one of the things that I think with the game itself, and it's so hard to justify spending time with tertiary characters in a video game where people want to, you know, they want to play their own story out. But I think this is one of those instances where I would have loved to have spent more time with Jackie and with Misty and Victor, and gotten to know them like that. Like, I feel kind of cheated by that montage that we got, because it was like there was a cool few months there that they had fun doing stuff, and I'm like, you know, I know the main story is only a good 30 hours or 40 hours long, but I really wish that we had gotten an opportunity to play through some of that montage and actually experience it. And they'd crafted those narratives, you know, like go to the, oh, I just blanked on what it was called. The place where they went and they stole that briefcase from the dude who was in the BD, and they punched him in the face after they paid off the Mox girl. And then they took the briefcase to, El Padre. And, you know, they had to go chasing after a couple, like I would have loved to have gone and done some of that with Jackie, and you get some of that with River, but Jackie is like your first introduction. I really wish that they had spent more time developing out some of that montage as opposed to just, you know, rendering it in engine and giving it as something like for us to get a sense of what their relationship is in the game before we have like the heist portion.
Yeah. I'm sure it was a decision at some point to I don't know if it was a decision to keep it short in order to make the majority of the focus of the game on the other stuff in order to get you into the rest of the game earlier, or if it was a decision to keep it short because development kept on taking longer than they expected. I don't know. Had the game been split a little bit more half and half, like if that entire first chapter of the game was a good 50% of the things you do in the game and then the rest of it happened, it would have felt like the rest of the game was a very different story compared to the beginning. But it also would have made it more tragic when things don't go your way, because you would have spent that time with Jackie going through all of that. So, yeah. But there's always 100%. A chance that like a DLC comes and it's like, like V and Jackie's adventures, and you get to, live out that part of your life a little bit more.
Yeah.
So
how did you feel about the perceived relationship between Jackie's mother and Misty? I always wonder if what the reasoning behind that is. Like, obviously, at least in my relationships, my mother has never approved of any of the women I've ever dated, including my wife.
No.
When I found out about this, I was like, oh yeah, I understand that. Yeah. And that's when I was like, whatever Misty wants, Misty gets. Nobody puts Misty in a corner. I am not going to stand for. I love Mama Wells, but she is not. She is in the wrong in this one. Misty deserves as much respect and spending time with Jackie as she wants.
Yeah,
and I was frustrated personally because of that.
I live in the opposite situation you have. I think my mom went through that whole feeling never really appreciated by her mother-in-law thing. So she didn't do that to my significant others. And I've been married twice. Like, I went through a divorce and everything, and she was still very careful about how she talked about my ex-wife and things in order to try not to, ruffle any feathers or, influence things. So she's been very, and she loves my current wife. I mean, we all get along great. So so I've had,
that would have been nice.
Yeah. I've had a great situation in that, but I totally get it. Like, I totally like, in tight knit families like that, and, certain cultures, so let's talk a little bit about it. His siblings, he mentions at one point that he's the last of his siblings to either be alive or not in prison. You remember this? I don't remember the statement. I tried looking for it. I couldn't find it. So he's basically the last of his mother's kids who's still there, and she might see him being in a committed relationship with someone else as potentially losing him. So that might be something that's adding to that friction. So let's talk a little bit about the ways that you come across Jackie in the different life paths. Okay. So Nomad, Jackie meets V while they're on a smuggling job in the Badlands in Night City. This is where you're getting the lizard. What is that? What's that called? Chameleon.
Iguana.
Is iguana. Yeah. Is it chameleon or an iguana?
Yeah. It was a big freaking iguana.
Iguana. And it looks awesome. The way it's rendered in the game looks so good. I took some shots later on when you get to be up close with it in the penthouse. So in that intro is probably the one that you don't feel like you kind of just are doing a job together, and then all of a sudden you're in lots of danger, and it's like you just got to be buddies and get through it. And so that one is probably the one where it feels the most forced because you don't have as much in common. As a street kid, you meet V while attempting to steal a luxury car. And in that one, like you were talking about, you both kind of have this, like, we both grew up on the streets, respect among thieves kind of thing happen. And even in that situation, when he holds the gun at you, he's basically like, listen, let's just do this the easy way. He doesn't say it, but he's basically like, just don't make me shoot you. Come on. He's even a nice guy about it when he has to be tough, And then as a corpo, Jackie is a longtime friend and confidant of V, helping you out whenever possible. So there's that feeling of like, maybe you grew up, but somehow you took the corpo route and he didn't. I don't know. They don't really flesh that out too much.
See, that's right there. Like you talked about how the Nomad felt like it was the most forced. I felt like the corpo was the most forced, because at least with the Nomad, when I was playing through it, the sense that I got, and it was weird because the shell or the place that you end up at the end of that session, I found that place in the middle of the solar farms or whatever those farms are over by biotech. And I was like, what the heck is this doing out here? This is such a weird building that is completely uninhabited. And then when I went through the Nomad playthrough, I found out that that's where you go when you find out what's in the box with the iguana. And I was like, oh, it all makes sense now. But when I got done with that, I was like, we're kind of stuck together. Like, we got to find a buyer for this iguana. He's going to give me half of the eddies for it, which is cool because I'm stuck in Night City now. So I got to have some money. And he kind of feels bad for you because he's like, you know, you did him a solid. He's going to get money for this. And you're now stuck in Night City. He's like, you know what? We're both thieves. Let me set you up for a little bit. You know, I'll give you some ropes, and you're stuck in Night City. You might as well make the best of it. With the corpo, it felt so weird where you just show up and he's like, oh, hey, it's my corpo buddy who went and made it big in the corpo world. Real good of you. And then you lose everything. And he's like, kind of saw that coming. And it just doesn't feel as natural to me as two thieves with the street kid and the nomad coming together at the right time and making a partnership out of it. It felt more like you're getting kicked down from among high, and you have to hang around with your old high school buddy, and you know he's got like the worst life ever, and you're sitting there with your really nice wristwatch and clothing, and you just lost your job, and he's like, well, I mean, if you got to slum it. Sure, welcome back.
Yeah, I see what you're saying there. I don't know. I feel like that's
my perspective.
I feel like that's a thing though, because oftentimes when we're in high school or like growing up, you don't see how your paths are going to go. And then you end up in a career path, you know, like one person decides to go to college and another person doesn't. And you were good friends in high school, but all of a sudden now your lives are very different because you went these different paths. You know, I have friends that took different paths, you know, even friends that it's not an intelligence thing. It's just this is just the thing you decide to go do. You know, like I have friends who, when I knew them before they were in a career, I thought of them as, you know, highly intelligent, capable people who very well could go on to do anything they want. And then, you know, there's a friend in particular I'm thinking of who decided to go into construction because that's just what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
You know, and you don't need an advanced degree to get into construction. That's something that you could, you know, get a high school diploma and go do. And in fact, I have two friends who went into different kinds of construction. And one of them I met in college. And that was just the way he wanted to go. And he became a foreman and kind of went, you know, the higher paid, you know, more responsibility managerial kind of route in that. But that was just the career path that they were drawn to. And that's just what they went and did.
Yeah.
So I kind of saw it as like, this is you and him. And V decided to take he took the business classes and went the corpo route. And, you know, Jackie didn't because of the difficulties with his family and just had to make ends meet. And a few years later, now you're just in different places. And, you know, maybe you both didn't start with a whole lot, but now you've kind of made something of yourself. And he's going, well, you know, surprise, they're going to backstab you. That's what's going to happen. And even though you're a corpo, you're still kind of a thief anyway, because everybody's stealing and backstabbing each other anyway. So it's not like, it's almost like none of these are not thieves. So that was my kind of perspective on it.
That helps me a lot, actually, because I always rubbed up against the corpo starting point. And after hearing your perspective on it, it definitely humanizes what happens a lot better than how I felt that was translated in the game. It didn't, that did not come across well enough for me to feel connected the way I should with Jackie in those beginning moments when you get done being a corpo and you get back to being just a normal merc.
And the problem is we don't see anything of their like beginning to know that, you know, like to know like, oh, how close were they 6 years ago or something? Like we don't know.
Spend more time with Jackie. That's the answer.
That's the answer. Yeah. So, so the other thing I noticed that I thought was really interesting about Jackie's personality, you know, the point at which you're driving through the city, he's kind of taking you through the city and you're getting a little tour of things. And then you need to get out of the city before they shut the bridges down, and you stop on the way out. Right. And the police officer comes up and you're like, well, just sweet talk her. You know, you're just like, and he's just like, ma'am, am I glad to see you? And she's like, well, me, what's special about me? He's like, because, well, I think you're going to understand why I need to get home. I need to go see my lady or something like that.
Yeah. It's so great how he plays into I am just a horrible, horrible boyfriend.
I'm a horrible boyfriend.
Just trying to trying to make right by my girl.
My girl. Yeah, he calls her my girl. And what's so awesome about that scene is that I think he's genuinely authentic. It isn't the only reason he's trying to get out of the city, but it's one of them. And he needs to make sure he gets back so that she doesn't worry about him. And in that moment, I think I think it comes across as he's telling her the truth. Like he's legitimately opening up because he's just kind of a sweetie pie, you know, like he's kind of a big teddy bear kind of guy.
Yeah. I always thought that was a really funny moment because it felt like one of those excuses you use when it's like that situation has happened to him, but it wasn't happening to him right then. But it was a true enough story where he's like, I could totally use this story to get by right now. And sure, this might have happened like 6 months ago and I'd pulled the same thing on another cop, but that time it was true and it worked. So probably this time it'll work.
Yeah.
And it does.
Yeah, maybe so.
So that's how I kind of saw it is one of those lies that you tell that was really from something that happened, just not, you know, like, yeah, I can't come into work today. I got a flat tire. I didn't have a flat tire this time. I actually had a flat tire last time. I just still made it to work on time.
Yeah, so now I'm going to use that excuse since I didn't use it before. So it's legitimate, but just the timing's different. Yeah, I can see that too.
My perspective, but he is it was so great to listen to him just kind of be like, oh, hi there, officer. How are you doing? I am having such a hard time. You don't understand. I have to get back to my girl because she's going to be worried sick if I don't. And it was so the tone changed from you're like, we just murdered a whole bunch of scabs.
Right.
Who are you?
Right. But I feel like that's legitimately who he is. The badass got to kick people's butt part of him is who he's had to be. That is the mask he puts on in order to survive in the world and do what he needs to do. But really, he's just kind of a big soft teddy bear. And if he didn't have to do those things, he would be totally fine with that. He would be totally fine just being a big soft teddy bear. He just the only way out he sees is through criminal activity because he's stuck in a world that just isn't treating anybody fair and is taking everything that he has. Which is kind of an interesting commentary on the world as it is already. You know, like so many people start in such a deficit with the world taking so much from them. Difficult family situations, difficult times, you know, in getting the right kind of schooling, the right kinds of friends, feeling like they have no real options. And so they're desperate. And that's why they end up in gangs and with drugs and those kinds of things. And Jackie's no different. Like he grew up in a world that basically said, everyone gets screwed. You're just gonna have to screw everyone back in order to get anywhere. Yeah.
And he has to do that through the Valentinos, even though he doesn't really want to. And it was really interesting. And as you were kind of describing it, I was thinking about it and I was like, River is in the same boat, but he's on the other side of it where he's actually a cop, but he's a big teddy bear as well. And if he didn't have to go out and break up drug rings and stolen tech and, you know, try and hunt down, you know, psychopaths and stuff, he would totally be at home hanging out with his family and or the, you know, his sister and whatnot and just barbecuing all the time. It's like, there's so many instances. Well, not so many instances. There's enough instances in this game where you meet characters who deep down really just want to have that loving life.
Yes.
Where they don't have to stress out about
and I think that's very
how
human.
much Night City is bringing them down. It is extremely. Yeah. Extremely well written in that instance. It is very human, but yeah. And I love that moment where Jackie kind of opens up and you get a hint of it when everything up until that point has been nothing but business. And you see that little bit aside. And I think that's where you really start to kind of feel for Jackie, because he speaks personally about what he wants that doesn't entail business. And that's when you really start to kind of connect with him, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you get to the heist stuff, and then he even opens up a little bit more during that section, because when you're on your way in, he's like trying to role play the part of a corpo who's like showing up for a meeting and talking about, well, this place isn't as fancy as that other place we've been to, you know, and then and then Bug's like, Jackie, stop it. And he's like, what? I'm playing my part, you know, and then, but like, he's just a big goof. Like he's a big goof. And the other thing that I really like about that is that it's a juxtaposition with the way he looks. His face is very soft featured. You notice, like, when you look at his face, he kind of looks like a big kid, but he's exactly that. He's a big kid. His character model, I don't know if they use his body's model anywhere else in the game on any other characters. I don't think they do. I think it's very particular to him specific, but he's a very barrel chested, tall guy. You like, he wears jackets and stuff all the time, but you know, there's muscles underneath there, dude. You know, like he's a tough, big dude because he's biologically just kind of that shape of a guy, right? But he's also just like a soft bear of a person. So that's, I don't know, that juxtaposition of like just kind of goofy, soft person who has to be tough in order to do what he needs to do is, I don't know, it's so real. Yeah.
And it fits in with the aesthetic of his family, you know, like his mom is smaller and petite, but of course he is like this huge dude, and you're like, how did she have him? Like, what does his dad look like in this? And if he is as big as he is, and his dad was abusive, like his mom must have been something amazing to survive all of that,
right?
So you're 100% right with his look. Like, it is clear, and it's such a God, I wish you could get more shots. This is the one instance where I wish it was third person most of the time, because I would love to see the petite body of V, female V, next to the big barrel chested Jackie in this instance, because it's so funny to think of like how big he is compared to how small V is, and just be like looking up at this big brother style and just really getting a sense of you know, he's the big soft teddy bear, I'm the one you got to worry. It's such like a twins, like Arnold Schwarzenegger kind of thing. It's so funny.
Yeah, no, I totally felt that way, because when I did my female V playthrough, I played as like a tough, no nonsense woman who just like would rush in and punch everyone in the face and chop them up with her sword, right? And so I answered questions in that way too. Like, she was just a badass. She didn't take anything from anyone. So especially through the portions with Jackie, like sometimes I was just mean to him. Like the scene where he's like, it looked pretty good in a suit, if I don't say myself. Like, I was like, yeah, it looks like we dressed up a bulldog, you know, like I was just smarmy with him the whole time. And he was like, oh, come on, V. Like, and he's like, but it was like, but you're right. It was like this little like chihuahua with a big old bulldog being like, and the bulldog was like, okay. You know, it was, so good.
I had this thought, and I think I understand now why Jackie's mom has such a problem with Misty, because she's not a Valentino, and Misty is a very calm natured person. She's not like tough as nails. And I think Jackie's mom, Mama Wells, wants someone that's going to be tough to take care of Jackie, to be like, Jackie, you're just a big boy. You're just a big child. Like, you need someone who's strong, who's going to keep you in line if I'm not around. And Misty is guiding, but she is not the authoritative one in that relationship. And I think that might be why Mama Wells is looking to his past girlfriend, because I was pretty sure, and I can't remember offhand, but I'm pretty sure she was a Valentino, and maybe that was why she liked Camilla better than Misty. But I don't know. Does that kind of track?
That could make sense. That could make sense. Oftentimes, people like we're psychologically we find things in other people that we like or aspire to in ourselves, and those are the things that we want, or we want, like, we see those as good, or we see the things in ourselves we don't like and we see them in other people and we see them as bad. So that might be something that she, as his mother, feels is necessary to being a strong woman, and it's something that Misty doesn't have. So therefore, she's not the right girl for him. I could totally see that as a justification. Sure. We'll tell you what. I think we're at the middle of the show. Let's do the middle of the show real quick, and then we will come back and talk about the different endings for Jackie and how things can play out. So here we go.
Let's do it. Hey, patrons.
All right, this is the middle of the show. This is where we get to thank our patrons for all of their support and helping us to do this every week. Thank you, guys. And especially thank you to our upgraded patrons who get to join us at the end of every month in order to talk more Cyberpunk. I'm excited to do that again. We had a lot of fun a week ago even? It was only a week ago. We did it, and we get to do that again in a few more weeks. So if you're interested in supporting the show, check out patreon.com/cyberpunklorecast. You can sign up for a very small amount of money in order to get ad-free episodes, extended episodes, early episodes, all that stuff. And if you decide to upgrade, you can join us at the end of the month. So thanks again to everyone who helps us out. We really, really appreciate it. All right, let's get to more Jackie stuff. So, as we know, and this might be spoilers to you guys, so if you don't know how things end up during the heist, the big heist scene, then you may want to skip the rest of the episode. So, that said, we do know that the heist goes south. They're going to steal the chip, and they basically get caught. In fact, terrible things happen. An assassination happens. Everybody tries to kill them as they're trying to leave the place, and Jackie gets damaged. Now, before he gets, I guess we should say mortally wounded, before that happens, one of the things that I think is really notable about this is the fact that he first uses the chip. He puts it in himself to keep it safe so that you don't have to. And I feel like this is another one of those selfless moments for him. Like he doesn't want you to take on that burden.
Yeah, he's totally falling on the sword. He knows it's damaged. He knows that there's a risk, and he's willing to put himself ahead of you. And he makes you feel like you're the chosen one. He makes you feel like you are the one that is going to pull the sword from the stone, and be the hero or the heroine in this instance. And it's so, dude, when he did that, it was so painful to watch. I had such a hard time watching him do that because I knew what was going to happen. Oh yeah. And I was like, no, don't, please just hang out with me. Just stay here, buddy. Don't put that in there. Yeah. We knew enough the first playthrough to know that that's not a good choice. This is going to not go well. Inevitably, I cut you off. Oh no, that's fine. I jump on top of you all the time, so I apologize. We're just both so excited to talk about these things. Can you tell? I know. It's so good. So inevitably, Jackie doesn't make it. And there's a few different ways this can play out. If you haven't played through multiple playthroughs and made different choices on this, you may want to try them out, see how they go. So if V sent Jackie's body home, later Guadalupe Wells calls V and mentions his family and friends were conducting a traditional ofrenda to mourn his loss. Guests at this include Victor Vector, which is, of course, a wonderful name. Padre shows up. Some Valentina show up to show their respects, and Misty, if V insists that she attend in spite of Jackie's mother's opinion. V can choose to speak at the ofrenda. When the ceremony concludes, Jackie's mother presents V with the key to Jackie's beloved Arch motorcycle as a parting gift. After the heist, you can find Jackie interred in the columbarium, that's an interesting word, in the South Park of North Oak. The epitaph on the tomb reads, "Good night, sweet prince." So, if the body was delivered to Victor, which is the one I chose first. Sorry, that just as soon as you said that, Good night, sweet prince. Oh God, it hit me. So that whole moment when I saw that for the first time. Yeah. So if the body is delivered to Victor, it is then intercepted by Arasaka. This is the one I thought was best, to fix him up a little bit before showing him to the family.
But no, of course, that's not the right choice, or at least it ends up this way. Takamura revealed later to V that Arasaka used Soul Killer to find out more about the heist. They basically rip his memories out of his dead body. Few engrams are met to learn more about the relic's true nature. However, when Jackie's engram appears to V in Mikoshi, they admit that it's nothing but data pretending to be human. We talked about this on a previous episode. You get to like interact with him, but really you're just interacting with echoes of things he said in the past that are just represented by an image of his body. So if V accepts Johnny's mission, V will free Jackie's engram and let it fuse with the image of Alt Cunningham to become an even more powerful AI, which is interesting. I didn't play through that one, but you're making a face.
Yeah, I don't see the difference in the Mikoshi versus Alt Cunningham at that point, because Alt isn't even Alt. It's not even like a human version of Alt anymore. It's just an AI at that point. So
it's crazy AI is doing crazy things.
Yeah. So it's just, I don't know, man. That whole premise of Jackie just being memories and being like a phantom of himself. The whole concept just haunts me. The idea, it's like if I had a loved one and someone told me that I could speak to them, and I go and I speak to them and I find out that it's not actually them. It's just like these memories that they had, and it's not actually me getting to communicate with them. It's just, it feels so hollow when I hear this. I'm like, oh, I don't want to play through that. Like, I don't think I'll ever send his body to Victor in this instance. Like, the Ofrenda was such a much better experience for me. Like, I totally
didn't expect that wouldn't happen. Like, I thought, why send his like damaged body to his mother, who would freak out? Why not send it to Victor, who at least could patch him up a little bit, make him more presentable, to then deliver to the mother? So that was my intention all along, was eventually let's get him back to his family, but let's at least present it in a little bit more, I don't know,
right?
Yeah, a little bit less traumatic way for his poor mother.
Yeah.
So that was my perspective, but of course that doesn't work out that way. So after all of this happens, you have the opportunity to call his phone and leave kind of a final message for him. And this can play out a few different ways. You can choose a few different options here. You can choose the I talked to Misty option, which in this one, V discusses how they and Misty went to Jackie's garage and saw his attempt at making a mandala. V calls it a piece of shit, but acknowledges that Misty appreciates it. V also says, nice work to their lost friend. The effort that Jackie put into making a mandala is exceptionally sweet of him, as his partner Misty is a spiritual person. And this is part of what you were talking about before. He was trying to make the effort and clumsily put a mandala together, right? So that one's kind of touching. You could tell him that you went to his funeral. If you choose to send Jackie's body to his family, you can attend his funeral. You see his friends and family making speeches for Jackie about how tenacious and high-spirited he was. V explains that Mama Wells was tough, even though her heart is broken. He also goes into how, or he or she, depending on your version of V, how Kampa Orta showed their respect, and that at the funeral, there was a lot of warmth to the guy. V says, wish you could have seen it, Jack. I'm sure you would have liked it. Or you can say, you'll never guess what happened. In that call, we get a glimpse of how V is thinking. Through the span of a single day, they went through a lot, losing their best friend, getting hit on them from Dexter to Sean, dying, coming back with a bug in their brain in the form of Johnny Silverhand. It's a lot to take in, and V describes it as a goddamn movie plot to Jackie. V tells him to hang tough and wonders where he is right now in the afterlife. Funnily enough, V mentions that Silverhand and Wells would never get along. The last line is quite ironic, as V says that Jackie could smell bullshit a mile off. If he knew what would happen, Jackie would have never been as enthusiastic about joining Dexter. The other option, the final option here, is you can just say, no, this is stupid, when trying to leave a message, and you basically stop the call. And it says here, as this option points out, V stops the call and says that messaging their passing away friend is stupid. V hangs up, sounds beat up about the situation. They will never hear from Jackie ever again, and that fact probably dawns on V during this exact moment. So they're just a little bit more I don't know, realistic about like, why would I leave a message on my dead friend's phone? This isn't really going to do anything.
Yeah.
So which all seem like very realistic options. You know, it all just depends on how you play it out.
Yeah. It's so interesting. If anyone has played through this and they haven't sent the body to Mama Wells, I would really encourage you, because a lot of his life is told in the events that lead up to the ofrenda and the actual speech that happens, because you head over to I can't remember what the name of the bar is. I want to say Ugly Coyote, but I can't, it's escaping me at the moment. But you get the opportunity to go through his garage, Jackie's garage, with Misty. And it's that point that she starts kind of explaining like just how much their relationship was and how much story there was to his life. And it was only during that moment where I'm like, man, he has had such an interesting life, and you're only finding out because he's dead. And I'm like, this sucks. Like, these are all stories. These are all moments that I would have loved to live through, to be a part of, you know, him having the belt from his father in case he ever came back, or, or Misty finding the things that he did that were totally secret to her, that he did to try and make that connection with her. And like when you're going through there, you're just like, this is the bottle of alcohol that he picked up that he saved forever because it meant something to him. And you get to pick like what offering you use at the ofrenda when you give your speech, and you offer it to the altar, and then you say a few words and whatnot. And watching everyone do that, it was like, he had a life, you know. It's that Fight Club. His name was Robert Paulson moment, and you take a moment to recognize the loss and the life that was lived there. And I hope everyone listening goes through that path for a moment, because it's such an integral part into why I love Jackie so much, and why I'm hesitant to say it, but I feel slighted that he was lost so early on in the game. And I mean, I'm talking like 6-8 hours into the game, but come on.
Yeah.
Like, let me have this life with him. And I didn't get it, but I don't know, man. That's the one point I think I really have to stress out so far that we've talked about.
Yeah. I have to wonder what it would have been like to have a V with Johnny Silverhand stuck in your head and Jackie there at the same time.
Yeah.
As like a counterpoint to Johnny. I have a feeling most of the time they wouldn't get along.
Yeah. I think that would be really cool to have him as an anchor point for your sanity too. Like, you could experiment with you becoming more like Johnny more and more, and Jackie constantly on the other side of it being like, kind of how Victor is at the end, where he's like, look, you need to shit or get off the pot here. Are you gonna take care of this thing, or are you gonna off yourself and ruin everyone else's life? And having Jackie for some of that would have been really nice, to be like, we got to do something about this, because you're not talking the way you were talking before. What's going on?
Right.
And have a moment
that
where you
could
could
have totally
actually
been a thing. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting points. I'd love to hear what people think about this. Obviously most of us love Jackie. Like, he's such a good character. In fact, it would be really cool to play as him in a DLC during his time with the Valentinos.
Oh,
that would be really,
that'd be fun.
That'd be a really fun adventure as well. And I'm sure tragic. I'm sure there are situations where he loses, or, you know, his siblings get arrested, or whatever happens, or having to confront his father, you know, like that kind of stuff. To have played through that would give us an even better view of Jackie's life.
Did you ever play through the Call of Duty that was before Cold War? I'm trying to think which one it was.
Advanced
but
Warfare?
There was, oh gosh, Call of Duty.
There's so
Modern
many of
Warfare,
them.
I think
there's so many of them.
It wasn't Black Ops. Yeah,
I played Modern Warfare. I played the
that,
new Modern Warfare. I played.
Okay, that's it.
That's it.
Did you? Yeah. Do you remember the part where you played as a kid out in the Middle East?
Yes. And you had to sneak around and the guy's trying to catch you and you're like sneaking around the rooms. Yeah.
I would love to have a version of Cyberpunk where you play as Jackie, but you have to go through those moments of dealing with your father as a kid.
Yeah.
And having to feel that fear and rage as a child. Like I felt when I was playing that, and like your family is gone and there's a man in your house hunting you down, and all you have are like scissors.
Right.
And you have to get out alive. Like that was such an intense it was a really tough moment for me to even like physically get through, just like dealing with anxiety and stuff. But having that in a Jackie Wells moment where you get to spend time with your brothers or your family and your mother and have to deal with your dad as like a little Jackie, like I would love like even if it was like a side part of the game, like its own version of the game, just a small bit to work through what it was like to go through his life like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be very emotionally interesting, especially because we already have feelings for the character, and to make those decisions yourself and get through them would be pretty cool. I wonder if this is one of the things. I'm sure they've thought about lots of different options for this stuff. Who knows what we'll get, but maybe we're predicting the future here. I don't know. So you have on our little note sheet here something about the voice actor. You want to talk about that real quick?
Yeah. So we've talked a lot about our love for Jackie, and I think one of the things that really, really is done well in Cyberpunk is the voice casting for this. Whoever casted the voice just absolutely nailed the characters. I don't think any of the characters that I've played with, the main characters for the story plots, have been people that I didn't feel like nailed the essence of what they were going for when they were reading a line. So I wanted to call out Jackie's voice actor, who's in the English version, which is the only one that I'm familiar with. His name is Jason Hightower, and he's a prominent voice actor. The funny thing that I thought was that the show that he is currently working on is a cartoon called Victor and Valentino. And I don't know why that cracks me up that in Cyberpunk you have Victor Vector and you have the Valentinos, but it cracked me up that Jackie Wells, a Valentino who's friends with Victor, is in a show called Victor and Valentino. But if you guys get a chance, go check that out. He was also the auctioneer in Ralph Breaks the Internet, which I absolutely love. And he's also in Star Wars Resistance show as well too. So he's out there, but I had to kind of bring his name, Jason Hightower's name, up because he nailed it for me. And I just absolutely love his voice, his cadence in speech, his emphasis on certain things. And it's just such a good character that, that's brought to life because of this person. And I had to, and the writing technically, but them and the writers just really, really nailed it.
Yeah, we like to call out people when we can put names to some of the things that we know they did in the game. He also did a character in Rage 2 from Bethesda, if you played that. Some voices in Final Fantasy 15. Fallout 76, he does some miscellaneous voices. Red Dead Redemption 2, local pedestrian population, kind of miscellaneous people. So he's shown up in a lot of different games, but I think this is one of, like, a lot of these are just kind of periphery characters. This is one of the big castings that he's been able to do in a game. So very cool stuff. So yeah, awesome performance. Definitely part of what makes the character, really work is the voice acting performance. So
yeah,
very, very cool stuff. So let's, I guess it's time to wrap it up. The last thing I want to bring up is I did a video last night. I was like, I should play some games. And I was like, nah, I'll just work on some stuff. So I put together a video. I was pouring through some of the new Nexus mod stuff. Another side point, there was a new little patch that came out, but, it was kind of tiny little patch. So not a whole lot to talk about with that. So if you're looking to patch your game. It'll make it run a little bit better, but nothing big yet on the patch front. So anyway, I was looking through all the different mods, and I noticed there are a ton. We talked a little bit about some of these fashion mods that have been coming out. There's a ton of fashion mods out there that include variations that are a little bit not safe for work. So I was like, all right, well, we're going to do a video about fashion mods, including the ones not safe for work, because that's what's available. So that's up on the Robots Radio YouTube. There's a link in the show notes or you just search Robots Radio YouTube, you'll find it. And there's some really cool stuff out there. There's just a real quick overview. There are some massive mods that give you all sorts of variations to cybernetic legs and arms that you can do, and even some of the plasteel skin and that kind of stuff that you can wear. There's some clothing mods that give you some updates to, say, like the boots that go above your knees, or some of the clothes that were shown off in the original E3 trailer are now back available because of one of the mods. There's also some clothes that are that light up. I guess that's the best way to say it. These really bright clothes, which I think make a lot of sense for this whole, aesthetic that they're going for with this interesting kind of, I don't know, cyberpunk future. Why not have glowy clothing? And some of them are a little bit, saucy. They got a little, string undies underneath glowing skirts and things like that. And then there's some other ones as well that as you get further into it, including one that even replaces some of the clothing that the NPCs wear with a little bit more revealing outfits, if you think that that's something that people would be walking around in the city with. So there's a variety there. You should go check it out. It's pretty easy to see. It's right at the top of the list if you look at the Robots Radio YouTube page. So I'll be doing some more of this stuff as some of these other mods come out. Some of them, I'm like that one, I could highlight a lot of the screenshots without having to install it in order to see what was available. But some of these, like the driving mod, or there's another one there's one that adds Thomas the Train as a vehicle in the game that you can drive around in.
No.
I've already downloaded that one. Then there's another one that I think takes that same model and replaces Dexter Deshawn's head with Thomas the Train, which looks phenomenal. I think I'm gonna have to install that also. So I might do some really wacky mod videos as well once I get those all working. And the more support we get for the mods, the easier it will be to try some of these out, because some of them you got to jump through some hoops in order to get them running in your game. So I'm a little bit hesitant to do that because I don't want to have to kill and uninstall everything and reinstall it all and hope it doesn't corrupt save files and all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, that's what we got coming. All sorts of crazy mods.
Oh, internet.
You know it.
When they replaced Mr. X with Thomas the Tank in Resident Evil, I was like, okay, that's pretty funny. Him in a Speedo, I get it. It's funny. Come on, guys. Thomas the Tank in Cyberpunk. Who did it? Why? Bad.
Which of you did it? We know it was one of you.
Which one of you internets? I know it was one of you internet Johnnies did that. Come on. We don't need Thomas the Tank in Cyberpunk, do we?
Yeah, I guess we do.
Someone ask for this?
I guess we do. What would be really cool is they replace all the police cars with Thomas the Tank engine. So when you see one, it's a cop.
Oh.
And then once they fix the whole police actually chase you, you get chased by a bunch of Thomas the Tank engines. And they all go, and instead of sirens, they all go choo choo. Choo choo.
Okay.
And you're like, oh no, the cops are coming. I hear choo choos.
Yeah. Yeah, you had me at cop car. I'm good with this now.
Is that better?
Let's do that.
Yeah. Random car you can drive around in the game? No thanks. Cop cars? Yes, please.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Cop cars? Yes, that's funny. Okay.
Choo choo. Oh no, they found me. Gotta keep moving. All right. Well, that does it for this episode. Logan, do you have anything worth shouting out about? Anything cool going on?
I did. I let a fan of the show who's now a friend of Keelhauled take over my podcast this week, and we had the Battle Pass system for Sea of Thieves just go live, and it's been great. It's been a lot of fun to have just little progress bars ticking up all the time. So he took over the episode. He even edited it for me. We talked for 2.5 hours on this episode. I don't know how it sounds yet because I've yet to listen to it, but I'm going to be listening to it tonight and posting it tonight. So if you have any inkling on what seasons or battle passes are going to be like for Sea of Thieves and you want to hear some fans' opinions, critical opinions of it, keep an ear out for that and just kind of hang out there. Otherwise, if you guys want Thomas the Tank in every game, I want to talk to you about this because I got questions like, what was it like growing up? Were there who took the happiness
from
your childhood? Who hurt you?
Who hurt you?
Because I want to apologize on their behalf. Look into my eyes right now. I'm sorry they took something from you that you want Thomas the Tank in your games. I am sorry.
I'm going to address these same people, and I'm going to say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for your difficult upbringing. Can you please mod Thomas the Tank into Sea of Thieves so we can ride around in a Thomas the Tank boat? Because that would be amazing. That's what I want. Instead of ringing the bell, I want it to go choo choo, choo choo.
No.
Yes.
No,
yes.
You don't.
Yep.
No.
I want like a little steam to come out. I want the steam coming out to be able to tell me which way the wind is blowing.
Don't you dare. Yes. Don't you dare. There's something sacred about Sea Thieves. No Thomas the Tanks running around as pigs instead of pigs.
I want the cannons to look like little Thomas the Tank engines, and when you shoot them, their faces fly off as the cannonball.
Oh my god.
That's what I want.
You're gonna have to stop talking because now you're turning me.
If you make it ridiculous enough, this is what I just learned about you, Logan. If you make it ridiculous enough, then you're on my side with any of these things.
If it's good for the joke, then I'm in. But don't just put it in just to put it in. Like make it worthwhile. Like it's got to be something funny if I'm gonna be okay with it. But you're kind of turning me on. Nope. No Thomas the Tank and Sea Thieves. Get out of here, guys, with your craziness and Thomas the Tanks.
All right. Well, thanks again for being on the show. And thank you, everybody, for listening. I have my regular stuff going on, robotsradio.net. And my big thing is the Robots Radio Rocket Club. We have now 5 members of our Robots Radio Rocket Club launching new podcasts. And I'm helping them do it. I'm helping them work on everything from what they need to know for recording, to planning their show, to strategizing their marketing, so that each of these shows can launch with the best start they possibly can, which is very important, because if you can start your podcast with a good audience, then it's a lot easier to grow than starting from nothing with very little experience. So if you're interested in doing that, if you'd like to start your own show and you don't know what you're doing, check out the Rocket Club, robotsradio.net/rocket-club, and I'd be happy to bring you on. We only have one more slot in order to join this group. This is my initial group of 6 shows that I'm going to work together with, and we meet every day, or not every day. We meet every day. We meet every Sunday before we do this show, and I'm able to talk with each of them and give them more pointers and work with them on what they're doing. So it's exciting stuff. Some really cool shows out there. You've probably heard the ads pop up, but go check those out. But that's it for me, Logan. Thanks again, buddy.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Until next time, stay safe in Night City, and go load up a new game and give Jackie a hug for us. He misses you. All right. We'll see you guys later. Thanks for tuning in to the Cyberpunk Lorecast. This show is a part of the Robots Radio Network, smart podcasts for interesting people. If you'd like to help support the show, please tell a friend and leave a 5-star review on iTunes. If you'd like to get in contact, please send an email to cyberpunklorecast@gmail.com or follow us on Twitter @cyberpunklore. Also, join the community on the Robots Radio Discord. The link is in the show notes. The music on the show was written and performed by The Midnight and was used with their permission. Go check them out at themidnightofficial.com. Until next time, stay safe in Night City. We'll talk to you later.
You've been listening to a Robots Radio podcast. Smart shows for interesting people. Check out all the shows at robotsradio.net.